cheated me too many times before. Don't you know you love me, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die. 'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
Well, good morning, and thanks for joining me at The Lost Begotten's Fake TV channel. I am your host, as always, Fake TV's The Lost Begotten. And, well, good morning, Europe, and happy 4 a.m.-ish, 5 a.m. on the East Coast. Still probably 2 a.m. on the West Coast. Probably, yeah. It is. Probably is the word that I, said while I subtracted 2 plus 4, or 2 minus 4. But anyways, tonight we're going to be talking about the fuckery. And, I was just cruising in my little selection of icons that I copied over to the Lapitopolis, and I came across this screenshot here. You know how when you use your Android and you scroll through pictures under gallery, it's got the date from when those pictures were from. So this pretty much marks when I called it. That's when I collected information and said that the Russian government was planning a coup in this country. No notifications again. Well, thanks for checking and finding it, Neville. I think Maximo should be waking up right about now. That was my logic in going ahead and going on live, but yeah, it's still, what, about 6 p.m. for you, eh? Anyways, so what you're looking at here are photos of, well, top right corner you can barely see is an RT screen. Okay. And then 2 more screenshots of basically the same thing, or the same report, but a different part of it, showing Alex Jones on RT, and RT talking about, Alex Jones type propaganda with the whole Bilderberg group and their role being revealed in the EU halls of Parliament. I knew that this wasn't about Ukraine. That's what's in the bottom corner, in the bottom half of the photo, bottom and right. That's Yuri Vodanovich, the commander of a contingent of Ukrainian soldiers in Crimea, who led his men out and went and faced the Russians unarmed. He led his men out in a column. They marched up to the Russians, and he went there and walked 150 feet out further, unarmed, to those Russians who were holding guns at him, and told them they didn't have no fucking right to be there. That man is a hero. Where are the Americans like Yuri Vodanovich? Certainly ain't got none in the Secret Service. Otherwise, they'd be closing up a zipper. Oh. I'm frankly thinking about starting to just make outright threats and just spamming the shit out of them. Just threats, outright threats. Because, you know what? If the Secret Service comes to talk to me about that, good. Mission accomplished. Because that's all I want to fucking do, is talk to the Secret Service and say, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Gonna let a fucking Russian satellite dictator be installed in the United States against the will of the people. Yeah, I want to talk to the Secret Service. Hell, I want to beat the shit out of them. They could all just line up at my door. That'd be great. Because look at this. That's fucking... That's not April 2015 when I called it on this channel. Okay? That's not April fucking 2015. Hello. April 2015 when I called it on this channel. Or when I made this channel just to call it. Basically. Okay? The whole reason this channel exists is because of the fucking Russian coup that was happening in this country. Already, as of 2014. 2 years before the goddamn election. Guess what that makes the CIA, the Secret Service, the NSA, compared to me. A bunch of fucking amateurs, apparently. And that pisses me off. Because I'm not very good at this, obviously. So, if they couldn't see this coming, what the fuck? If they couldn't take the lessons from this event and apply it to the past and the future, first of all, they are guilty of no such thing as this fucking weird conspiracy that Alex Jones promotes. Why? How do you know? Why does that prove that? Because they do not possess that level of competence. Period. I mean, the Russian mafia, Russian gangster shit, fucking from that to the results of it in 2001. Okay, and that was actually that big pretty golden building was their reward for Islamic State. Okay, that's what that was. That was to commemorate the Caliphate. Or could you imagine if, right after a major terrorist attack in our country, let's say maybe Barack Obama built the world's largest mass mosque in fucking Washington, D.C. How would that make you feel? Again, I am not an anti-Muslim person. I'm an anti-Islam person. Political Islam. Okay? I remember when I was a little boy in elementary school, hanging out with a girl named Sumita. And she had beautiful purple burqa. She's a very nice girl. And she said, I'm a Muslim. And I didn't know what that was at that age. And I asked her. And said, we practice Islam. So I said, okay, so what's the difference between Islam and why is it called a Muslim? She didn't even fucking know. I don't think most of them know. In fact, I don't think any of them know. Just like the majority of Christians don't know basic shit about Christianity, the majority of Muslims don't know basic shit about Islam. So to blanketly accuse an entire group of people is fucking silly. Unless you're me, of course. Because I get to accuse all of humanity of being fucking blind as bats for not seeing this coming. Anyways. See? I don't discriminate. I mock everybody equally. Including myself. Just for different things. But that usually serves the purpose of showing you that you have no excuse. Never thought of it that way, did you? So, what'd you think of that, Neville? Did you happen to be in the Support Ukraine group before I made the channel? I don't know if anyone from the Support Ukraine group is still here. Which kind of sucks. It's as if they can't even see the channel anymore. Shocker, huh? All these photos were screenshots that I took and put up in a Facebook group called Support Ukraine, US, UK, and AUS. And I tried, man. I knew my fucking country was in danger. I knew it. I'm not one of these fucking Alex Jones morons, okay? It wasn't a theory. It was data. It was concrete, factual data that I analyzed and determined that there were patterns. Patterns are caused. From the direction of the pattern, you can trace the cause and the objective. It's clear. Go back and watch Vice News. Go back and watch that shit from 2014. See what the fuck those Russian troops, those little green men, were told, were propagandized with, were brainwashed with, and then see what they were telling the people there. And see if that don't remind you a whole lot of Trump supporters. In fact, see if that don't remind you a whole lot of Trump. Where's our Maidan? Where's all the cops that realize this is not legitimate? This is not legal. Trump's presidency is not legal. It's not valid. Not a damn thing he does should hold any weight at all in the rest of the country outside of this little Washington, D.C. bubble in which there is a sting operation going on, people. Let's just fucking face it. This is a sting operation. This is not a president, okay? And if you call him a fucking president, you're stupid. And you're borderline a fucking traitor to your country, okay? By calling Donald Trump a president, you're pissing on the graves of everyone who died in World War II. You're pissing on the graves of everyone who died in Korea and Vietnam. And you're pissing on the graves of everyone who died in the Persian Gulf and Afghanistan conflicts. Why? Because Russia was behind all of that shit. And you just let them take over your fucking country. He didn't win the fucking primaries. That was fucking cheating. That was Manafort. Okay? That was people going door to door, paying people to show up to vote. Okay? Carefully worded bribes. They didn't tell him, here, I'm giving you this money to vote for my candidate. They knew who they were going to go see. And they went and saw the right people. And they made sure they were all just fine for taking a day off of work to make sure they were all properly motivated. Okay? In addition to many, many, many dual citizenship migrants in selective areas strategically positioned to swing individual districts. All that data that they got, the campaign data, that's how they use that data. And oh yeah, you think they need to hack to get the Republican side? So, from the primaries that he did not win, you went into a general election in which basically you can go down the list and check off people who did not possibly vote for him. Okay? 70% of women, Republican and Democrat, did not vote for him. Okay. We had all of our voting machines, all of them, every single one, hacked in ways that we can't even fucking pick up. Okay? And the way this is done is called scalar wave hacking. Alright? And it's a matter of multiple transceivers coalescing at a particular point. Okay? And this can mimic a physical connection. Okay? So if I have 3 trucks and I park them in equidistant positions around something that I know where it is because it's plugged in and it's in the same spot, or I sent somebody in there to tell me exactly where it is, I can get into it just as if I was putting a fucking USB drive in there. And, you know, I've been saying this thing about scalar waves for a while, and that the Russians have the technology. They're the ones with the technology. You didn't listen, did you? No. How's your embassy in Cuba doing? Or our embassy in Cuba doing? That was a scalar wave attack. A scalar wave attack. Okay? They used scalar waves on those people. 16 of them had brain hemorrhages. They used them on the American embassy in Cuba. Okay? It's the same type of device. A whole lot less complicated when it comes to that kind of shit, which is probably why they let Cuba have it. But if you use scalar waves in a much more sophisticated manner, you know, like a modem, and that's basically modulative transducing. You know, so I call it a modem because it's changing one signal to another signal in the airwaves. Okay, so it basically modulates these scalar waves into the hard metal of your computer, and that picks up as USB signal. And you know, it sounds fancy, but it's really not that hard to do. And that's how democracy fell. On top of that, Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes after over 4 million votes weren't counted. So she probably won by close to 7 million votes. The Electoral College is not a phrase that exists in the Constitution. I repeat, the Electoral College is not even a phrase. Not the words Electoral College do not appear anywhere in the Constitution. The electors are errand boys meant to take votes from the states to the capital. Okay? Before doing so, they are supposed to vote overtly so that the people entrusting them to carry those votes know where their political allegiance is. Okay? So, if I'm a Democrat and I'm going to be your elector, my job is to go to the state capitol and gather all the votes for my little district, count them and declare them, and say, I, blah, 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 am voting blah, blah, blah. And the citizens of blah, blah, blah have cast this many votes for blah, blah, blah. And you go to Washington, D.C., and you say, the state of blah, blah, blah's district of blah, blah, blah has cast this many votes for blah, blah, blah. And then Paul Ryan's supposed to sit there and add them all up. It's a fucking presidency. It's not supposed to be decided by anything but a popular vote. That much should be implicitly understood by the definition of democracy and should not be altered based on loose interpretation of something as important as the Constitution of the United States. So why have we done this? Why do we have an electoral college? Because of the Confederacy that we beat. Because of the Confederacy that is a rebellion. Because of the Confederacy that is treasonous. The compromise with the Confederacy, and that's what it was basically a pre-incarnate Confederacy, the lower states that wanted their slaves and wanted to have a big enough vote to count for all their slaves. They're the ones who negotiated the Three-Fifths Compromise before the Civil War. Okay? So, after the Civil War, that became illegal. That became invalid, immoral, and unconstitutional. Therefore, the Electoral College cannot legally select the president against the will of the American people. And anyone who says otherwise has been reduced to the level of stupidity that they cannot keep themselves from being a traitor to this country, to the Constitution, to fucking God, truth, and all that is right. Tell me a bunch of fucking rich old fucking white men get to decide everything for everybody? Guess what? That is the reason why the rest of the world will come and destroy this country. And I believe I was warning people about that in 2012 and 2013. Now, I'm pretty sure after that, something happened that might indicate such warnings should be listened to. Fuck's sake, I mean, just, nah. Anyways, so Neville, can you get on the Twitters or Facebook or something and post a link and let other people know I'm live right now. I don't know if you're friends with Maximo on anything, but let him know I'm on. I'm sure he'd, want to know. Like, oh shit, he's on? I didn't even know. So, what warnings was I giving before this? My warnings are as they've always been. Warnings of hypocrites. Warnings of deceivers. Of false prophets. Coming to destroy freedom itself. And just as I warned you 2,000 years ago, that they lust after children, that they take slaves, and that they make money off of money changing. That's who you're dealing with. The money changers. And guess what? They're not Jews. You know what they are? You know what their technical species class is? If you want to be racist or bigoted against them? They're called douchebags. So, congratulations, you're a douchebag-assist. Or anti-douchebag-assist? Anti-douchebagist. I don't know. What, you thought I was going to say something powerful and meaningful? No, douchebags. That's what they are. They're fucking douchebags. And they all need to be just fucking squirted in the face with their own medicine. Yeah. Anyways. So, I just got back. Well, I took a nap. Well, technically that's sleep if you do it at night, right? Yeah. I just got back from MACNA, that is the Marine Aquarists of North America. It's their convention that they hold annually in various places all over the country. And I got all kinds of stuff. We had like raffles and wheel spinning and just shit that they were giving away. God, I'm just gonna lift it up and show the camera after I change the camera back to the other way so it isn't backwards. Alright, there we go. That way. Okay. Ooh, that's weird. Alright. So, Marsh. We got this thing here. Marine Aquarium and Reef Society of Houston. And I'm thinking about going to one of their events. Ooh, I got a fridge magnet. Oh, cool. I got some free Kimmy Pure. Oh, see, I'm moving it the wrong way because I'm used to the right to left mirror camera. So free Kimmy Pure Blue, a nano pack, which I use in my cultures. Wait. Oh no, I just gave away another secret. Yes, I use nano packs in my cultures. And Chemi-Pure Blue is basically a combination of high-quality carbon, which removes organic minerals, and granular ferric oxide, which reduces phosphates and silicates. So, here's the deal. Carbon in a marine reef aquarium. Get this shit out of me. Why is my... Okay. Move the fucking window. There. Now I'm in the middle. Carbon in a marine reef aquarium requires an excessive amount of rinsing, or else you'll wind up with carbon dust in the water. Okay? Now, what you probably don't know is that all that red cyanobacteria slime, that's caused by carbon dust. You're not overfeeding. You don't have the wrong lights. Your bulbs aren't getting old. You're running carbon, aren't you? Yeah, you are. That's what's causing your cyanobacteria. Next time you need to rinse that shit twice as long as you think it took to rinse out last time. Or do what I do. Don't use carbon. This is for emergencies only. If you realize you stuck your hand in the tank and you didn't wash it, you put your carbon in. If something gets spilled, you put a lot more carbon-ness in. Contaminants. This is for when shit goes wrong and you want to clean the water of chemical contaminants. This is what you use. Regular carbon. This one right here is the only type of, general type of carbon I would even consider using on a regular basis, because the GFO in it, that's the granular ferric oxide, will reduce the phosphates and silicates that the cyanobacteria also need, in addition to the carbon dust, to procreate. So, basically, this won't make your cyanobacteria as bad as just regular carbon. But don't buy this thinking it's going to fix your cyanobacteria, because it won't. Anyway, well, unless you rinse it for just a lot longer than you feel like you should. Okay, set a timer in your head, at the very least. Time how long it takes for you to get that carbon rinsed to where you can't see any water going through it. And then continue rinsing for that long. Anyway. So I got business cards and business cards and business cards, and I don't know what those are, but they're cool. Little stickers. Business cards, and business cards. And Sustainable Aquatics bumper sticker window decal. I got to chit chat with Mark Levinson of Malev's Reef, and I almost got him to give me a coffee cup. Almost. I didn't push it too hard. I was being subtle. I probably could have got one out of him, but it's like, do I really want to be holding up free advertising for Mark Levinson? See, I could have just said that, and he would have given me the coffee cup. But I was like, good looking coffee cups. They were black with his logo on the outside, and like a teal aquamarine, like a deep, point the other way, like Yuri's, like the Ukrainian blue, but a little more of a sea blue. And then on the inside was the blue, so it was black with blue on the inside. It was cool. I liked them. They were good looking coffee cups, and they were almost big enough for me. They were, just barely smaller than this. So I was like, oh, I could drink out of this coffee cup. Yes, I could. Anyway. And got this cool thing here from Coral Restoration Foundation. And, oh, I didn't get to meet Nedemeyer. I don't think he was there. Wasn't looking for him, though. Just remembered I probably should have been. I probably would have noticed if I saw Ken Nedemeyer there. But this, it's not a bumper sticker. It's not a window decal. It's a tattoo. It's a little fake tattoo for Coral Restoration Foundation. You know, that's cool and all, but, like, I feel kind of gypped because what the fuck am I going to do with that? Wear it to spring break? No. I'm fucking old. I don't need a fake tattoo. This would be much better, bigger, and on the back of my car. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Alright. So, let's see here. Steve Taggart's card. Ain't that cool? And I got this card from a certain guy who's my age. He's very successful. And that's all I'm going to say. I got to talk to him for quite some time about stuff and things. And things and stuff. And another business card. The Coral Reef Aquarium Specialty Store. There's a lot of manufacturers and stores there. I got some awesome video. Filming almost the whole time I was there. I got just some amazing coral and frag displays. Zoomed and panned, and I got tons of eye candy coming up in future uploads. I might even, depending on if I get bored streaming, I might transfer some over and preview a couple of them out on here so y'all can see what I'm talking about. But it was cool. So we went and took a drive out to New Orleans last night and stayed at the Landmark Hotel because we got a ridiculous price on the room. Apparently, a whole lot of the hotel was vacant. And then the deposit was $50. That was more money than we even paid for the damn room. And get this. Lady behind the counter, like, okay, we had cash, and they said it's supposed to be on a debit card. We fucking broke as shit, okay? We barely had the gas money and everything to make it out there. And we were really kind of worried about whether or not we would even be able to actually, like, park or eat, you know, like. So, luckily, the skin on our teeth was extremely thick that day. And, she said, okay, well, you know what? I can let this slide as long as y'all promise me y'all aren't going to mess up the place. You know, it's a security deposit for damaging the hotel room. And she's like looking at me. I'm like, I've been driving. It's already late at night. I'm like leaning on my cane. I'm just like, And the girls are like leaning on each other, halfway asleep already. And she's like, yeah, we're just going to sleep. And the lady behind the counter just laughed. And we're going to MACNA first thing in the morning. We just want to sleep. So, I did, however, thoroughly enjoy the hotel shower. Because my shower sucks. I'm 6'3.5", and like civilian showers don't really do it for me. And you know, my spine's broken in 3 places, so I have to I have to do crunches and core strength training just to be able to stand, right? So when it comes time to take a shower and I gotta like bend over just to get underneath the fucking shower head, it's really tedious. And then in addition to that, our bathtub has a crack in the bottom that has been repaired. No footing at all. It's unstable. It's fucking borderline scary. I always think I'm gonna fall through the goddamn floor of the house. So yeah, hotel shower. I mean, the shower head was this big, like it was bigger than my head, and had all kinds of different settings. And I was just going through all of it. It's like it was wonderful. Anyway, so I have a phone filter that apparently Marsh was giving out. And that's like a little orange lens that you put in front of your phone, apparently. And what it does is it makes it orange, but that makes filming inside of an actinic aquarium, you know, like when they have all the blue lights on the marine fish tank, it's supposed to make that look more like a normal spectrum. Okay, but that's pretty cool, huh? They were giving those away. I like MACNA. That's my first time ever going. I've been keeping marine fish in aquariums and reef tanks for 30 years almost. Since I was... Wait, no. Not giving away my birth year. A long time. 28, 29 years-ish. Yeah. 30 fucking years, okay? 30 damn years. And I've never been to anything... I've never been to a local reef club. You know, when I was a little kid, I was the guy that would go into the fish stores and just talk to the owner the whole time while my dad shopped. Okay? And my dad did some fucking shopping back in the day. And like today, I got to see George from Coral Connection. Haven't seen him since I was like, you know, a little tiny kid of only like 5'10". But yeah, he didn't recognize me at all, but it was cool seeing him. He's still doing rather well. That's Coral Connection is one of the original people that were importing from the different islands that had been collecting them and stuff, and was running like a wholesale coral distribution place out of Kenner, Louisiana, down there by New Orleans, since the mid-90s. So he's kind of like an unsung legend. Definitely a legend among all the local, like the southern retail owners, you know. He's cool. So got to hang out with him. Apparently, I just found a whole bunch more business cards. There's my decal. I think that's another decal. Another Coastal Restoration decal or tattoo. I wonder if I could put this on a card and just clear coat over it. Okay, Aquarium Engineering, I got a demo video from them. It's a little independent guy who appears to have just like a few years ago just built a really awesome protein skimmer because he needed to. And then apparently somebody wanted to buy one, and one thing led to another, and now he's got like a full line of really powerful, really gigantic kind of awesome looking protein skimmers. We'll have a video up sometime soon of that. Coral Restoration gave me a business lead for my flood-proof building, aquaculture facilities, research facilities. SaltwaterAquariumRadio.com. Okay. I got the personal card from the regional Hagen rep, Hagen Fluval. So he told me he'd set me up. He'd help me set up an account for my store. Networking, business. Always working. I'm always working. This is fun. This is like the most relaxing shit I get to do is work. Anyway. Oh, and they had this. I have a really cool video to show y'all. I wish I would have got the earrings though, but I got all these really cool necklaces that are made from abalone and different, you know, ocean type stuff mixed with, you know, the regular usual jewelry type stuff, right? I'm not a jewelry salesman. But anyways, they got like little seahorse necklaces and sand dollar necklace, not like a real seahorse, but like well done glass sculpture, ceramic, well not ceramics, like pewter, gold work and all kinds of stuff. You'll see on the video. You'll see on the video. Just some really cool necklaces and jewelry at this one little booth. It's probably a good thing we didn't have any money. I would have just bought something for my wife. So, now on to the brochures. I got to hang out with Rod. Rod is Mr. Onyx. He's Mr. Onyx Percula. And if he sees this right now, he's going to be cracking up. Oh, he's a cool guy. I could totally hang out with this guy. I talked to him on the phone it's been over a year now. We're going to say a few months ago. I talked to him on the phone about my breeding project. And talking to him about salinity and striping and just different questions I was having about whether or not my fish might be brother and sister because I was getting some deformities, and actually no, that's just kind of a thing that happens. I was talking to him today. I went over there and hung out with him like 3 times. And he was telling me some cool stories. One of which is about the wildest shit I ever heard, as far as reef keeping goes. Okay, and you really have to talk to these old guys who helped found the hobby to really get this kind of inside information, because they're the ones who were out on the islands observing the shit how it naturally lives, and they were the ones who collected it. And, like there's been just all kinds of people collecting since then. They're employees of these kind of people. So we were talking about how the black striping, or the black, barring, or coverage, or whatever you want to call it, comes in on the Onyx Perculas. And he said, what you might be surprised is they live in tide pools. The ones in the wild that develop the black come from tide pools. Really high temperature extreme fluctuating salinity. But that's not the cool part. The gigantea carpet anemones. Huh. He says that they would thrive, those gigantea carpet anemones that for years people had really hard times keeping alive in the hobby. And still, a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with them. They lived in the fucking tide pools. No current, not exactly stable water conditions. And, you know, the rains come during low tide and just dump fresh water, cold fucking fresh water, on these hot ass tide pools with these magnificia stickulacatus or whatever the fuck. Gigantea. The fucking first Latin word of that species is hard to pronounce. And I thought I knew how to pronounce it until I heard him pronounce it today, and now I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm trying to remember how he pronounced it. Stick a lot of cactus? I don't know, something like that. But anyways, the gigantea carpet anemones. He's been keeping them in the systems where he grows these out, or where he had first discovered how to grow them out, right? And what he does is, instead of an auto top-off or a daily top-off, you know, consistent salinity like you'd have in your reef tank, he goes once every week and just dumps a fucking bucket of water across the whole top of the tank. Just dumps a bucket of fresh water right across the whole fucking top of the tank. That's insanity. Like, that would kill all my coral. And the bubble tip anemones, they'd just be like, oh, fuck you, what have you done to me? So, anyways, got to show him pictures of our babies, our perculas, and apparently I am, in fact, the only Louisiana marine fish breeder. Couldn't find anybody who had heard of another one. So, I pestered him a little. And I got a free t-shirt. And you might know exactly how much of a dork I really am by how happy I am about having a Rod's Food t-shirt. I got a Rod's Food t-shirt. Look at Big Mama Percula Onyx right there. That's Big Mama. Anyways, I went up and said, so, like, how many true perculas would I have to raise to, like, you know, qualify for an honorary free Rod's Food t-shirt? Like, well, you get one for free if you buy the food. And he's like, kind of like fucking with me back, right? Like, oh yeah, let me just take my 2-hour road trip in my car with barely working AC and see if that Rod's Food makes it back to the house. Oh yeah, and with the no money that I have to spend. Okay, good. He was cracking up. Pretty sure he had been drinking. Kind of smelled it on his breath a little there. Anyways. So yeah, got to talk to him for a hot minute. Let's see, I'm gonna go through the brochures before I mention anybody else I got to talk to. I got to talk to a few more people. Excuse me. Got a brochure from Coral Restoration Foundation. and they talk about volunteer activities and everything that they do out there in Florida, helping rebuild the coast and whatnot. Okay, that's not really showing up very well. Okay. Got a flyer for Reefapalooza, which I will not be going to because it's far and that shit costs money. I got to see my wonderful new friends at Current USA. And the reason why I call them my wonderful new friends is because they're the ones who make my light. Those new lights that I got on the reef that I'm so fascinated and fond of. They've come out with a newer, better one since then that will also control the wave timers. It has 3 different wave timer controls on the lighting controller, and I think it has the ability to plug into some other controllers. I think. But if you're shopping for a new aquarium setup, made in America, okay, and top notch, very high quality. Every little bit of that is high quality stuff. So what this will do is it'll time your sunrise and sunset, and actually these new ones have like a whole bunch of different features. I think they even make the sun go from one side of the tank to the other over the course of the day. How badass is that? But they've got a lot more different effects and that kind of stuff than the ones that I have. That's apparently they came out with these, and that's why I got mine so cheap. I got no problem with that. I'm not one of those people that has to have the latest product. I'm usually very happy to keep an eye on what the high quality name brand product is, and instead of going and buying a generic thing when that shit comes out, I'll wait until the next one comes out, and then I'll go buy those when they go on clearance. So, what this guy does is you program this thing, and you can use the remote to do. Well, actually, you have to use the remote to do it, and it plugs in your wave maker guys, which they also make in America, and it will set the timing of the current to increase and decrease appropriately as it does over the course of the day. So you can have basically like a high tide and a low tide, like skewed current to one side, your waves getting bigger on one. I don't know all the different ways they mess with it, but this is a few generations in. That is, many companies have made these types of wave timers, and this being an evolution and the latest and greatest, man, I'd sure like to play with one. Oh, Current USA, if you'd like to send me one, then I could demo it for you. I'd be more than happy to. Oh, more than happy to. I mean, wait, hold up. If you just twist my arm just a little bit. Okay, yes, I'll do a demo video for you. Okay. So anyways, I love the Current USA light. I have 2 of them above my 20 long top tank right there. And those are some happy anemones, some happy montiporas, Pleiades, Stylopora digitata, organ pipe coral, freaking Euphilia, all doing very, very well in that tank. Anyways, I also stopped by this. I don't know if you've seen these yet. Look them up on YouTube. Jellyfish display tanks. They're really cool. It's kind of like a low maintenance relaxation type thing, and it's something I would think teenagers might be into, or college kids, because it's kind of like it's like a night lamp, it's a decorative lamp, You can put it on an end table in your living room or your nightstand in your bedroom. And it's got fucking jellyfish in it. And it's enclosed, and it has the varying color LED lights that, like, you can either program it or you can just have it sit there and loop, and it just slowly fades into different colors, right? Kind of like the camera did just now. I turned off the auto white balance. It shouldn't be doing that. That's fucking annoying. So yeah, here's their little displays. Check that out. If I can get it in the camera. And they just, basically the jellyfish are white, so the light makes them change colors. And they just, apparently they come with a Chemi Pure Blue Nano Pack. That's the whole setup right there. Let me see if I can get that still. Yeah, there you go. In fact, why don't I take this crap off of here sometime? Okay. Morning, Joey. Oh, going back to bed. Good night, Joey. Okay, alright, this thing here. I'm scrolling on the wrong part of the screen. There we go. Make this bigger. You can actually see some shit. Kinda. A little bit. Maybe. Alright, that's good enough. Fuck it. So, here is the whole setup. It's got a little remote control for the light. So, yeah, little jellyfish display things. I think I'll probably wind up trying to sell those in the store. I was talking to them about a distribution arrangement. Basically what they do is they'll ship you 5 of them, and then you sell them, and you pay them. Like, that's how they do their accounts. So, I mean, good marketing on the distribution side. Because honestly, if she wouldn't have told me that, I probably wouldn't have been interested. I'm like, oh, really? Y'all send... Well, shit, somebody might come and ask for them. Somebody might see them and want them. Okay, I'll put them in the store. So anyway, I was by the what is it? What the fuck is the name of the other half of their company? That's not Mark Dukes. Something with an M, and they make Prozi Pro. They're probably the better of the fish medication brand people, but their other side of the company is Fritz. And I was joking with one of the guys that was standing there. Fritz, I remember that. I used Fritzheim number 9 that I bought at fucking PetSmart in 1994 to cycle my first 29-gallon aquarium. Oh, Fritzheim number 9. Some old school, like, who uses that anymore type shit. And while they seem to be very updated in their product line and seem to have some impressive stuff, I wonder if they're just too corporate for their own good. Because I was sitting there, and they have one of the bigger, like, display floor areas, and I'm talking to this guy, made my little joke about the Fritz I am, number 9. And then he finally tells me, I don't work for Fritz. That's those guys. And there's these 2 young people, guy and a girl. Just not fucking paying attention to anything. They're both in their computers and chit-chatting with each other. And I go try to talk to them, and they just kind of like looked up and just and just kept back with each other. Fritz, do you need to hire a marketing consultant, sales trainer? Give me a call. Anyways, yeah, like somebody from Fritz is gonna watch this fucking broadcast. I know. Maybe one day, if Russian hacking is ever defeated and my channel is unlocked and I have the millions of views that I'm supposed to. Alright. So, here I have the Triton method thing. Okay. And what this is this is a company that you can send your water to. And it's like a subscription-based service. And it's not cheap. And they test every single element in the water. So, they've come up with a like basically a like a program based on their testing subscription of supplements. Okay, so like they've kind of perfected the hobby. It's expensive, but it's as close to perfect as you could get it. Because when you mix up salt, it's got a certain number of, major chemicals and trace elements, okay? When your corals or even your fish grow, they absorb those elements, especially the trace elements, out of the water. Not in predictable amounts. I mean, on average, it's kind of okay to just, be like, every month or so I'm going to change some water and replenish those trace elements. I'm going to take a complex dosing, like Kent Essential Elements or Chem Trace, and just kind of hope for the best, right? Triton came up with this technique of you send your test in, and they basically tell you what to add to your tank, and they have come out with a complete product line of all the different stuff that you're going to need to correct and close to perfecting your water chemistry. That's a nice photo. Big old Nassau tang with some acro behind them. That's cool. So yeah, this brochure that they got is pretty impressive. It's got the whole plan all there for the Triton method mind map. Ooh, the mind map. Anyways, Audubon Nature Institute was out there looking for volunteers. That's kind of cool. So if you're in the New Orleans area, they're always looking for help down there at the Audubon Nature Institute and the zoo. Triton method. Ooh, a calendar. I got a 2017 calendar from Omega One, and they were doing like a photo contest. Oh wait, glare. There we go. They were doing a photo contest where you submit your photo for the next year's calendar. These are apparently all the ones from previous submissions. It's kind of cool. Huh. It's a fucking piranha, isn't it? I forget. Omega One doesn't just do saltwater. I'm not sure what that is, but it appears to have its babies in its mouth. Okay. More freshwater. Sailfin tang. Some zoanthids. Ooh, a seahorse. That's cool. Plenty. That's a cute picture. Oh. Pretty impressive. Quite good. Alright, so my wife gave them the photo of Bruce that went viral on Facebook. So if you see a cool Mandarin picture in their next year's calendar, that would be ours. And here's the floor plan for the whole event. It was gigantic. Like, I really wasn't expecting to get that tired from walking around that place. But, yeah, we'll definitely see on the videos that I'm gonna be uploading in the upcoming days and weeks. Hopefully just days. Gummies. I got a thing of P.E. Mysis flakes and a little sample pack of P.E. Mysis pellets. I guess that's cool. I always use free fish food around here. Right. And got an Omega One bag, and the girls got clownfish bags. I forget who they were from. I think they were from Marsh, actually, from the Houston club. And I think that's all the brochures I got right here. So, that's my gear grab from MACNA 2017. Rod's food shirt. It was pretty cool. Certainly tiring. My back doesn't allow me to stand up for many hours at a time. We were walking around for about 3 or 4. So I was hurting pretty good. By the time we got back to where we had to drive 2 hours home. Yeah, 2 hours. So anyway. Whoever's in here, please post a link on Twitter and tag the Lost Begotten in it. Or post on Facebook. And, you know, because notifications never go out. Because, you know, YouTube prefers to financially defraud people who spread truth that isn't consistent with their corrupt agenda. So, I guess it's time to get back to the news. So I have a very interesting episode of Hardball. Oh, look, and it's 42 minutes. But I wanted to put that on there and maybe do a little bit of commentary. But probably just going to do a whole lot of listening. Because, you know, Chris Matthews is usually a pretty bright guy. He could certainly, you know, use or benefit from learning some of what I've been trying to teach. But overall, he's pretty, you know, he's older, wiser, experienced guy. And he knows his shit. And he usually calls it like it is. Chris Matthews, he usually calls it like it is. And they're going to be talking about Manafort and some other various aspects of the Trump-Russia investigation. So let's go ahead and go to that now.
Possible Trump collusion between the Trump administration and its campaign and Russia. NBC News reports Special Counsel Robert Mueller issued grand jury subpoenas in recent days to public relations executives who worked with Paul Manafort. It's the first public indication that the investigation is beginning to compel witness testimony before the grand jury. Also, this afternoon, the Wall Street Journal reported that Mueller is, quote, examining what role, if any, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn may have played in a private effort to obtain Hillary Clinton's emails from Russian hackers. Well, that effort to work with hackers was led by a longtime Republican activist who described Flynn as an ally, according to the Journal. And then there was this Washington Post report today about concern within the CIA. According to the Post, CIA Director Mike Pompei-o has taken a special interest in an agency unit that is closely tied to the investigation into possible collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign, requiring the Counterintelligence Center, or Mission Center, to report directly to him. Officials at the center have in turn kept a watchful eye on Pompei-o himself, who has repeatedly played down Russia's interference in the 2016 election and demonstrated a willingness to engage in political skirmishes on behalf of President Trump. Well, the Post reports that while Pompei-o hasn't interfered with the unit's work, there is concern about what he will do if the CIA uncovers new, potentially damaging information about the president. One U.S. official told the Post, people have to watch him. It's almost as if he can't resist the impulse to be political.
Right.
For more on all this, I'm joined by NBC News national security reporter Ken Delanian.
That is a great way of putting it. You know, last time I talked about Pompei-o, there was just a little something wrong about the guy. And that's he just can't resist. Let's see that.
Work, there is concern about what he will do if the CIA uncovers new, potentially damaging information about the president. One U.S. official told the Post, people have to watch him. It's almost as if he can't resist the impulse to be political.
Can't resist the impulse to be political. That is a very accurate way of putting it. And a very good telltale sign that somebody is up to some shit.
For more on all this, I'm joined by NBC News national security reporter Ken Delanian, U.S. Congressman Eric Swalwell of California. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. MSNBC national security analyst Malcolm Nance, and the Wall Street Journal's Eli Stokols. In that order, what do we make of the fact that Council Mueller and his people now are apparently issuing subpoenas, but they're basically going after, let's start with this, Manafort, who always looked like the low-hanging fruit here, Ken. It doesn't surprise me that they're moving faster on him because of all his, let's put it this way, commercial entanglements with all elements of the Russian hierarchy.
It doesn't surprise me either, Chris. And what this is, at bottom, is an effort to get behind why Paul Manafort was paid $17 million by a Russian-backed Ukrainian political party. And this was a lobbying campaign that went on between 2012 and 2014. A group of Washington PR firms were paid millions of dollars to lobby the U.S. government on behalf of this Ukrainian regime, and they didn't register as foreign lobbyists at the time. They've subsequently done so. Manafort has subsequently done so. Now Mueller wants to know, who got paid, what did they do, what was Manafort's role? But he's not just asking, he's compelling their testimony before a grand jury. And as you know, when you go before a grand jury, you can't lie. If you lie, you go to jail.
Congressman, what do you have on this in the committee? What do you know Manafort's role here? What is it? What are they looking to him for?
We know that he was a central figure at one of the most intense periods of Russia's interference. So, Chris, he presided as the chairman when the convention took place. He was a part of the team that allowed Carter Page to travel over to Moscow. He was in that June 9 meeting, and he had prior ties personally, financially, and politically to Russia. So this shows that progress is being made, but Chris, it also shows that these investigations take a very, very long time, especially when you're dealing with such complex financial transactions and communications.
Eli, what do you got on him? Because I say low-hanging fruit because from the beginning of this sort of inquest, which began months ago, we've wondered about why did Trump pick Manafort, a man whose always relationships seemed to be Russian? What was that bent about? What did he expect to get from a guy who had all these entangling relationships, except he wanted them? Well, he wanted a guy around who had all this going on in Russia.
I think at the time, our reporting is that during the campaign was kind of in a fraught place. A friend of his, the friend of President Trump, told him, hey, I got a guy, knows somebody, he'll be good at this, he'll help stabilize the campaign, and brought him in. It's unclear whether or not the president was actually aware of all of Paul Manafort's foreign entanglements, but it's pretty clear at this point that he is a top target of this probe. And you've seen the president, over several months as this has gone on, distance himself from a lot of people, including Paul Manafort. They never had a close personal relationship, and he has said many times, he was a guy who worked for me, he wasn't there that long.
What, Malcolm, give me your full sense of your instinct on this, your way of, I have sort of an instinct too, but it's not as professional as yours, about Manafort. He just seems like the kind of guy who would be involved in a lot of intrigue, not everything you want to put out on the table, a bit like that. That's just my hunch.
Well, he has a history at this, and he worked for the dictator's lobby. But I think what Mueller and his team are doing is very, very smart. They are throwing a circle around Manafort's financial past, and they are going to either determine one of two things: either he was working with the Kremlin as a Kremlin asset, or he was just a really poor choice businessman who had a poor choice of clients. But by issuing these subpoenas, they are going to they're going to squeeze everyone that's ever worked for him, and they're going to determine whether there's documents, statements, or processes that are missing there to make him talk.
Well, you know how everybody in Russia always has an American. I've heard about this for years. They've got an American they work through. Can you imagine Putin when he hears that Trump, one of the candidates for president, and not Hillary Clinton, has brought Manafort aboard as his chairman? He must go, wow, I've hit the Irish sweepstakes here. I've got one of the guys I deal with is now the top guy, or should he look like the top guy for a few months there, in the whole campaign for Trump.
Now that right there was a bit naive, Chris. He didn't find out. He planned it. He set up Trump to begin with, and then he sent Manafort to help when the time came.
Is it just serendipity here? What do you think?
He also had General Flynn.
Okay.
And
Ken, go ahead.
General Flynn,
Go ahead, Ken.
Go ahead, Ken.
Chris,
you're raising the fundamental question here, which is we know Paul Manafort's in pretty serious legal jeopardy, right? He's got all these financial entanglements. The noose is closing on him. The question is why. What is that? What's the relevance of that to the question of whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia? Is there a connection here? Why was Manafort brought into the campaign? Do his Russian entanglements in his business past bear on the question of Trump campaign collusion with Russia? That we don't know yet, but that's where this is all going.
Well, if you're Trump, you must wonder, did I start this or did the Russians start this? At some point you go, wait a minute, I thought I just met, you know how the Russians do. You meet a pretty girl on the subway, the platform, and all of a sudden you're having a relationship. It turns out she's a spy and you're a fool. I mean, you're shaking your head, Malcolm, because I think that's Russian just tradecraft.
Well, I think what we have here is the fundamental question that everyone must answer before they do anything is this a Russian operation? Was this a large-scale, long-term operation in which they tapped their asset, Paul Manafort, to come out and try to manipulate this? And I think that's where this is going.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, according to the Wall Street Journal again, Mueller's team is looking into Michael Flynn's role with an effort to work with hackers to obtain Hillary Clinton's deleted emails. In fact, last July, President Trump openly called on Russia to find those emails. He was open with this. Let's watch him.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
Congressman, this is like in plain sight here. Here's the guy, the candidate for president, saying, go out and get what you can on my opponent. But you're not supposed to get help from overseas. You can have Democrats abroad and the Republicans abroad, I suppose, but you can't have foreign powers helping you in a campaign. It's illegal. And there he was asking for an illegal act by the Russians. Your thoughts?
That's right. So when you combine this with the June 9 email, the Trump campaign certainly was willing and eager to receive information from the Russians. This Peter Smith individual, unfortunately, he's deceased. We won't learn any more about whether he was working with Michael Flynn.
But he invoked suicide.
Michael Flynn. And he invoked General Flynn. And again, if the Russians were placing bets, they didn't just place one bet on Paul Manafort.
He committed suicide.
More about whether he was working with Michael Flynn.
But he invoked suicide.
Michael Flynn. And he invoked General Flynn. And again, if the Russians were placing bets, they didn't just place one bet on Paul Manafort. There were a number of people in Donald Trump's inner circle who had prior relationships with the Russians. So General Flynn, as you know, received money from Russia today and sat next to Vladimir Putin, a huge insult to the United States. So there were a number of efforts that the Russians at least were making, and the question remains, did the Trump campaign take them up on it and work with them?
This is a journal story. Tell us what you know.
Yes, my colleague Shane Harris has been out front on this story, and he actually talked to this Republican operative, Peter Smith. And
he was 81 years old, and he committed suicide recently.
Just days after he spoke to Shane and told him about what he had done and basically acknowledged that, yes, he was out there soliciting from hackers these 33,000 emails that they thought were out there that they assumed were in Russian hands. That's unclear. But he would go tell people, I'm working with Mike Flynn. I can get these to the Trump campaign. That's what happened. He commits suicide after confirming that story. And now there's obvious questions. You can understand the attention being paid to Flynn because Mueller wants to know if Flynn was working with him.
Can you first then, Malcolm, what do we know about that? What do we know about Flynn?
Why are y'all sitting there saying he committed suicide like that's true? You know it's not true.
What do we know about this guy Smith who committed suicide, who may have been able to get something from the Russians, but certainly went looking to the Russians, I guess at the behest of the candidate who said he wanted somebody to do it. Get me what they got on Hillary.
This is one of the most incredible and bizarre stories in this whole Russia saga, right? And my hat's off to Shane Harris for breaking this story. I mean, Peter Smith was very serious about this. He had a whole operation, right? And so to the extent, if Mike Flynn is found to have participated in this in any way, it's going to be a serious problem for Mike Flynn and for the Trump campaign.
What, legally?
I think so. I mean, there's a legal theory that if you receive something of value from a foreign government, that's an illegal campaign contribution. Now, some information, there's a question about whether that's something of value, but clearly
I got to tell you, the world I've worked in, they pay for that. It's called a commodity. That's what you pay for. It's called oppo. Malcolm, your thoughts about the evidence we have that this was something going on? That because when the president comes out publicly and sort of with braggadocio, it says, okay, Russians, come on, give me something you got on Hillary. Once you hack into her emails, I mean, I don't know if he was thinking about breaking the law, but he certainly didn't act like he thought he was breaking the law.
Well, you have to remember, Mike Flynn was the former director of Defense Intelligence. He had access to a lot of systems and plans and processes that brought large quantities of information right to his desk every day. You know, when I was working at NSA, we had a little sign in our division, and it said, "Gentlemen don't read other gentlemen's emails, ... or email, ... except for us." I think Mike Flynn may have brought that dictum to the campaign, to where he had multiple teams of dirty tricksters whose job it was to get any dirt, any information, and when he saw these things being dangled in front of him, instead of viewing it from a counterintelligence purpose of not touching Russian assets, he may have gone for it. We don't know yet.
Well, speaking of getting the information and trying to get more, the CIA Director Mike Pompei-o is a very close political ally of the president, even though he's head of the agency now. He's played down the Russian hacking story himself, saying it's something Moscow's done before. No big deal. Here he is.
Did Russia intervene in our election?
Of course. And the one before that? And the one before that. They've been at this a hell of a long time, and I don't think they have any intention of backing off.
Well, according to the Washington Post, Pompeo spends more time at the White House than his recent CIA predecessors and is seen as more willing to engage in policy battles, I guess, on their behalf. When asked about Russian election interference, Pompeo often becomes testy and then recites talking points. And, quote, earlier this year, he and other officials were enlisted to make calls, catch this, to news organizations speaking on condition of anonymity to dispute a New York Times article about contacts between Russians and individuals tied to the Trump campaign. And recently, Pompeo even defended the president's response to Charlottesville. Let's watch that.
I think the president was, frankly, pretty unambiguous about what his Justice Department is going to do, the way he views how utterly inappropriate it is for this hatred and bigotry. I think the president's remarks were very clear.
Eli, you have to wonder, since this President Trump, has put the arm on a number of people. In Coates, he put the arm on others. Certainly put the arm on James Comey before he fired him. Hey, help me out in this investigation. Quash this baby. You got to wonder what his conversations are like with Pompeo, who heads the counterintelligence effort in the CIA, that would be usually responsible for getting more information to show this relationship between the Trump people and the Russians, and yet you have to wonder how vigorous he is in overseeing that.
Right, there's ample evidence that this president expects loyalty, that he asks for it, and we know from the Comey situation that it was Comey's refusal to say, "I'm loyal to you, I'll just let the investigation go." That's what cost Jim Comey his job. And so Pompeo is still there. We don't know about their personal conversations, their private conversations, but you can read between the lines because you do see the way Pompeo is out there answering these questions.
Congressman, you worked with Mr. Pompeo in the same committee, and let's give it fair. Do you have full confidence that he will be a public servant here and bring all evidence he can? There is, in terms of any further development on the intel regarding the Trump campaign and its relationship, such as it was with the Russians. Will he be aggressive in doing that job, or will he be the president's guy? Which one?
Chris, I like Mike Pompeo. I think he's a bright guy. He served our country, and I have found so far that the committee has had great cooperation with the agency. So it does trouble me to read this. I think it's something we should learn more about. But frankly, Chris, in this situation with the Russia investigation, I'm mostly worried about the principal and not the deputies. I'm worried about the way the president has been acting and the way he's been bullying and obstructing people. We just learned this week that he was calling senators who had written legislation to make sure Mueller would stay in place, trying to get them to back off of that. He seems to be the lead here, and so if people are following his lead, that's because the principal is acting inappropriately.
Do you believe in calling Tom Tillis, who's in cooperation now with Chris Coons, a Democrat, and trying to protect the special counsel, Bob Mueller, from getting fired by the president? The fact that he won't put his arm on him, trying to get him to not support that legislation, not to co-sponsor. Do you think that's an aspect of obstruction?
He certainly made witnesses now out of these individuals, and it's not a way that an innocent person would act, Chris. Innocent people cooperate with investigators, and they want to get the investigation over with as soon as possible. He's actually working against himself because his obstruction has delayed the committee's investigations, and it continues, I think, to delay the FBI and the Department of Justice's investigation. That's not how an innocent person would conduct themselves.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Ken Delaney, and sir, as well, who's our colleague here, U.S. Congressman Eric Swalwell. Thank you, sir, for that. especially the last part. MACNA, as always, and Eli Stokols, my colleague right here on the Wall Street Journal, which has done such a bang-up job here. Coming up, much more on tonight's late-breaking news on the Russian investigation. NBC News is reporting that more subpoenas have been issued by Mueller. Plus, the Wall Street Journal, as I said, is reporting that Mueller is also investigating what role, if any, Michael Flynn played in seeking Clinton's emails from the Russian hackers. He didn't even know they had it, but he's trying to get it from them. Plus, President Trump braces for an important test of his presidency as a massive Category 4 hurricane bears down on the Gulf Coast, likely becoming the most powerful storm to slam the U.S. in more than a decade. We're going to have a live report out of Texas tonight. And a top member of the president's team breaks his silence, saying the White House, quote, can and must do better in condemning hate groups. How will Trump respond to that? Finally, let me finish tonight with Trump Watch. You won't like it. This is Hardball. Well, obviously, the other major story we're following tonight, Hurricane Harvey, is now a massive Category 4 storm. I'm joined right now by NBC News correspondent Katie Beck, who's in Corpus Christi, where the storm's expected to make landfall. Katie, let me ask you this. Where are we on this to number 4? What's that tell us?
Well, things are going to get progressively worse. They have been getting worse all day. We've been seeing conditions, rain and wind, and now we're seeing downed trees. There's over 30,000 people at Corpus Christi alone without power, including our hotel room where we're staying. The hotel is without power at this time. So they're expecting a storm surge that could be between 6 and 12 feet. They're expecting winds now to be 130 miles an hour. So the devastation is going to be considerable for the state of Texas, and they are bracing for what is coming. It's supposed to be making landfall around 1 a.m., and that is going to be when we're going to see the conditions at the height. But right now, I think a lot of people are taking cover and trying to brace themselves for what's going to come.
Compare it to, Katie, compare it to Katrina, if you can, in violence. Power.
Well, I'll tell you, I will tell you at this point we're not seeing Katrina's strength, but what I'll tell you is that there are some eerie similarities. We're driving through these neighborhoods and seeing all of these houses boarded up with spray painted numbers on the windows and the doors, to indicate how many people are inside, if they're men, if they're women, if they're children. That is very reminiscent of Katrina and sort of the eerie stillness of it all. There's no one driving. There's no one in the downtown. There's no one anywhere. I mean, people have heeded this warning by this point, and they know what's coming.
Take care, Katie.
There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. You had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest.
Welcome back to Harvard. That was, of course, President Trump nearly 2 weeks ago now defending the alt-right protesters in Charlottesville, many of whom were neo-Nazis and white supremacists. We know all that now. Trump doubled down on that defense when he was asked to clarify. Let's watch that.
Are you putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane?
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
Well, during his combative interaction there with the president was flanked by Secretary Elaine Chao, the Secretary of Transportation, and the Director of National Economic Policy, Gary.
You don't have any doubt about it either? He's fucking insane. He's shown signs of dementia, paranoia, megalomania, and bipolarity.
The two were asked to address the president's comments, and both declined thereafter. Let's watch them.
As a woman of color, and Gary, you as a Jewish man, what do you think about the Nazi support for President Trump and his reaction to it?
Well, the president has already said in his statement, it is intolerable. We are a country of tolerance, and it is hateful behavior, and it is not who we are as Americans.
Bother either of you to see Nazis supporting this administration?
We're talking about infrastructure today.
Nazis.
I'm talking about infrastructure.
As Secretary Chao said, we are here to take questions on infrastructure.
Well, today, 10 days later, Director Cohn finally addressed the...
If you can't condemn Nazis, no. If you don't automatically want to beat the shit out of Nazis, get the fuck out of my country.
issue telling the Financial Times, quote, I believe this administration can and must do better in consistently and unequivocally condemning these groups. Citizens standing up for equality and freedom can never be equated with white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and the KKK. Well, today NBC confirmed Gary Cohn drafted a letter of resignation, but never submitted it. For more, I'm joined by former Democratic Senator from California, Barbara Boxer, and Yamiche Alcindor, national reporter for the New York Times and an MSNBC contributor. Barbara Boxer, it's great to have you back. You won like 5 straight elections out there. You know your politics.
11 straight elections.
Okay, well, counting the House, but the Senate statewide. You know, I think that this issue of Nazis and the inability of the president getting tongue-tied and being unable, to me, is far more important in his world and politically than legitimate arguments over statues. We're going to argue about statues forever, and people have different views, and there's probably no bad guys on that debate. But there are bad guys, I say 90% to 10 at least, on the Nazi thing. We found out the other day, 9% of Americans are accepting of the idea we have basically alt-right neo-Nazis around. They don't mind that at all. In fact, that's who they are. But why do you think that Gary Cohn has stuck with it and then finally come out with this timing of finally 10 days later saying the president needs to get it right, and it hasn't gotten it right yet?
You know, each person is going to follow his or her conscience, and I have to say, if I was standing there and I heard the president give cover to hate groups, to white supremacists, to Nazis, as an American and happened to be a Jewish American, I would have gotten probably out of the TV shot. I would have thought deeply. I would have prepared something to say. I've walked out of meetings. I write about it in my book. I wrote a book, The Art of Tough, and I talk about actually going on a foreign trip, being in Morocco, and sitting there and hearing the Moroccan talk about Jews in a way that was so appalling that I gave a look over to Tony Coelho, who was then leading the trip, and we walked out, all of us, the whole delegation. You cannot be silent. Look, better late than never, and next to Steve.
And that is how Americans are required to act, or they are not Americans. And that conclusion is postulate. So if somebody acts like that, you can guarantee you that they're being brainwashed and are therefore loyal to a foreign country. That is not an American ideology at all. If you practice that, you're not American. And if you're not American, you practice something similar to that.
Mnuchin, he looks like a... Speak up. You must.
Elaine Shaw was also there.
You cannot be silent. Look, better late than never, and next to Steve Mnuchin, he looks like a profile in courage. But the truth is, we cannot be silent. We've lived through that before as Jews, and you must speak up. You must.
Elaine Shaw was also there. She comes from Taiwan, and well, Yamiche, let's talk the facts here. Do we know that Cohn was ready to walk?
That's what the reporting says. The reporting says through sources both at the New York Times and other places that he was ready to walk. But I think that this is also in some ways Gary Cohn looking at the long view of whether or not his legacy is going to be intact after he leaves this administration. So he's really in this game where he's trying to say, I'm really opposed to this, but I need to stay in the administration because I need to do good here. And that's the dance that a lot of Republicans are playing.
You know, I make judgments about people that are sometimes very positive for no good reason. I like Cohn. I don't even know the guy. I've watched him just a few times, and I say he's like a normal person compared to some of these people going around the Trump crowd right now.
I mean,
he looks like a grown-up. Senator, he looks like a grown-up. He looks like a guy he's had a regular life. He's made regular big-time decisions. He's not a bad guy at all.
No,
and I'm looking, how does he stand there and put up with that guff from the president? Anyway, your thoughts on that again?
Yeah, what I want to say is, you're right. He's a normal guy, but he's standing behind a president who is not normal. Now, I've served with 5 presidents, 3 Republicans, starting with Ronald Reagan, 2 Democrats. I have never seen a president give cover to hate groups. And therefore, if you're standing there, those are the very moments that you need to be heard. But again, eventually, he said something good. But I will tell you, those are those moments when you're tested as a human being. And the way I'm looking at it is right now, I could talk to you about this forever. I'm acting to go after the politicians who are sitting silently by. And I am volunteering for my political action.
Tell me how people contact you. Here's your chance.
Yes. BarbaraBoxer.com. We're taking on these guys who are sitting there and rolling their eyes and giving cover to Donald Trump. He doesn't deserve the cover.
But can I just quickly also say that I think the part of the reason why he's coming out and saying this is because Republicans are about to come back to D.C. and they're about to start talking about tax reform. They're about to start talking about healthcare, and they're going to be pivoting in a way that's going to be remarkable for most people. But I think that they're going to be successful in pivoting, and I think that there are people in the administration, especially people of color and Jewish people, who are very bothered by this. But Gary Cohen's still staying in his administration, which means that he's still supporting Donald Trump, essentially.
And it's fascinating stuff and important stuff. Thank you, former Senator Barbara Boxer and Yamisha Alcindor, BarbaraBoxer.com. Up next, Hurricane Harvey's a Category 4 now hurricane with winds of 130 miles per hour. Look at the pictures you're going to see tonight. If you're lucky enough to see the pictures, the reality is very tough down there in Texas, heading towards New Orleans. How's the administration prepared to deal with this? Are we going to have one of those crazy things we had with terrible things we had with Katrina? Let's see how the president handles this one. We'll be back. We're going to talk to New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu in a few moments. And this twists and turns.
White House senior staffers playing defense on yet another Russia story.
Trusted NBC News journalists will guide you through it. So wherever the story goes,
if there's news, we'll bring it right to you.
You'll be right there with it.
Welcome back to Hardball. Well, anyway, Hurricane Harvey's a Category 4 right now. It's expected to hit Texas in the next few hours with major winds, historic rainfall, and potentially, this word, catastrophic flooding. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is in Corpus Christi right now. Gabe, there you are. Oh, my God. Take over, sir.
Hey there, Chris. Well, this is rapidly intensifying. It really got bad in the last hour or so. The wind and the rain, as you can see, is really pounding this area. Corpus Christi and around the surrounding area, more than 30,000 homes and businesses are already without power. The governor has declared states of emergency in 30 counties here in Texas. Earlier today, we were at an evacuation zone. One evacuation center alone, more than 700 people got on buses heading from Corpus Christi to San Antonio. Authorities here expect a very long night. The local police says that they are only taking emergency calls that are life-threatening over the next few hours. We're actually going to go inside in such a short time because the worst of it is expected overnight after 8 o'clock. Landfall is expected near Corpus Christi right around midnight or 1 o'clock. But again, breaking news within the last few minutes. Hurricane Harvey is now a Category 4 storm. Sustained winds of up to 130 miles an hour, Chris.
Thank you, Terry. Straight on-site reporting. Sorry, thing. Take care of yourself. I see you leaning against the wind there. Well, this will be President Trump's first major national or natural disaster. And as the Washington Post points out, storms like this can define presidencies. Well said. Homeland Security Advisor Tom Boussard was asked about the president's leadership skills in yesterday's, or actually today's, White House briefing. Let's watch him in action.
This is right up President Trump's alley. When we go in and brief him on the preparations for this hurricane, he is acutely focused on making sure that, and just the right thing, by the way, that the American people in the storm's path have what they need. His questions weren't about geopolitical issues or about large political consequences. His questions were about, are you doing what it takes to help the people that are going to be affected by this storm?
Well, the president left early this afternoon for Camp David, where he's monitoring the storm, I'm told. Anyway, we're joined now by Mayor Mitch Landrieu of New Orleans, the city expected to feel the effects of Hurricane Harvey. Mayor, it's great to have you on. Your city's been through terrible times with Katrina and the cleanup afterwards and the rebuilding. That's been so successful. What are your feelings and what do you see coming now in the next several?
So he felt good because he confuses a natural disaster with a construction project?
Hours and days.
Well, what is just so prescient is that, next Tuesday is the anniversary of Katrina, so we feel this. And first of all, our thoughts and our prayers go out to our fellow Americans in Texas, because this is a very dangerous storm, and as the National Weather Service said, it's going to have catastrophic effects not just from wind, but primarily from the flooding and the rain. And I think it's going to be really hard on them. So, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. We want to do everything we can to help them. And then, we're not sure what's going to happen after this storm, hits land. It could back up into the Gulf. It could dissipate. We're just not sure right now.
The images that I'll never forget from last time, of course, I was down there for a long time afterwards looking at the cleanup and the mess and the horror, and the lost housing and everything, where there's Coast Guard helicopters hovering over houses along the water's edge with putting down ropes and bringing people up by basket. It was so dangerous. Are we going to see something like that again, that horrific sight of helicopters hovering over buildings?
It's hard to know. One of the things we keep reminding people is that Katrina was an engineering failure because the levees broke and it was a flooding event. Every storm brings something different. If this is a rain event or a wind event, the consequences could be different. I can say this, our emergency preparedness in this country today is far better than it was. And I know the entire country has been leaning forward. FEMA's been doing a great job. They've been in touch with our governor. We've been in communication with them. They've been in communication with Texas, and they're leaning really forward. But this is a major event, and sometimes events can overwhelm you really quickly, and the response has to be very quick, and hopefully they're poised and ready to go. But it's going to be a tough consequence that we're going to see unfold in the next couple of hours.
Compare the new FEMA director, Brock Lane, with Michael Brown, who was the Arabian horse race expert or whatever that W put in there.
Well, Mike Brown wasn't appropriate for that particular office, but since then, through David Paulson and, of course, Craig Fugate, and now Brock and a whole bunch of other people, FEMA and the state GOSEPs have done a much, much better job of being prepared. I had an opportunity to meet with Brock the other day with our governor. They seem to be leaning forward, and we appreciate that. The bottom line is there can't be any politics in storm recovery or storm response. It just can't be that way. And our guys are professional now. We're all in communication. It really matters because it really is a matter of life safety. And, of course, it requires citizens to assist as well. So we're hoping for the best in Texas. In Louisiana, we're preparing for whatever might come out of that because after two...
Did y'all hear what I heard? That he met with Barry? Shadow government.
2 to 3 days from now, we don't really know what's going to happen because these storms are unpredictable. And the best thing to do is to be prepared for the worst and hope for the best.
Politics is a lot about public spirit, and it's the job of the leader to keep people up, keep their morale up. What's the feeling, Dana? Because you went through so much with Katrina, and the dirty water, the smell, the bad. The health conditions that led to it, the lost housing, the Ninth Ward. I think this whole country felt that when you guys went through down there. Is this city able to take it again? Another banging like this, another hammering?
Well, it's always hard. This particular week for us is always a difficult time. And we just have to be as ready as we possibly can. But it wouldn't be accurate to say that we're not concerned about it. But again, we have to prepare. There may be a different kind of event. Potential flooding concerns us tremendously, especially because of these rain bands that the National Weather Service continues to talk about. Pumping capacity concerns us, all of those things. But you have to be ready. You have to be prepared. You have to have a plan. And there's got to be good command and control. And so far, there's a lot of leaning forward going on. But let me just say this. A hurricane, a Category 4, is a big, big storm. It's very dangerous. It can be very harmful. And there can be bad consequences from it. So, again, we just hope for the best for our friends in Texas, and then hopefully as this thing either backs up or it dies, it'll do it quicker rather than slower, and sooner rather than later.
Mayor Mitch Landry, great to have you out here. Great man to be covering this and handling this and leading your city through it. Up next, breaking news tonight, the Special Counsel Bob Mueller's Russian probe is picking up speed right now. Welcome back to Hardball. Well, we're back with tonight's major story. It's the Russian investigation again. It's getting serious. We now know that Special Counsel Bob Mueller is looking into whether former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn may have played a role in trying to obtain emails from Russian hackers. And another indication that the Mueller investigation is gaining steam. NBC News is reporting that Mueller is now issuing subpoenas to former PR associates of guess who? Paul Manafort, the first public indication that the investigation is beginning to compel witness testimony through subpoenas before the grand jury. Let's bring in the roundtable of the Hardball Roundtable. Nick Johnston's editor of Axios, Priscilla Alvarez is politics editor at The Atlantic, and Brian Murphy is Washington correspondent for McClatchy. Let's go from your end, Brian. sometimes you think Trump is paranoid. I don't think he's paranoid at all about this. I think he has reason to fear. He's up against 16 of the best lawyers in the country. He's got Bob Mueller there loaded for bear. And the guy is very systematic. He's done his due diligence, et cetera, et cetera. Now he's going to subpoenas the weapon. He's weaponizing his power, and he's commanding a testimony, commanding it before a grand jury. Let's start with Manafort. What's he got?
Well, it does seem to be the one thing that Trump gets upset about. You know, he
Get 16 prosecutors coming at you?
It seems to be the one thing that, he called Tom Tillis after the Mueller bill was introduced. According to reports, he called Bob Corker. It was at the heart of the conversation that he had with Mitch McConnell. It does seem to be the one thing that
he called Dan Coates. He called James Comey. He calls everybody, please, please, please quash this investigation.
Right, and it is not happy that the Senate is not doing enough to keep this investigation from him. So it does seem to be the one thing that animates him in these conversations.
Priscilla, this is we'll go right through this, but it seems to me now we know there's subpoenas then it's going to leak. I know grand juries aren't supposed to. It's kind of going to leak, and you're going to find out about what he's got.
Yeah, absolutely.
As he presented.
And the other important thing, the notable thing about this, right, is that this investigation is not going away. I think today sort of demonstrates that at its fullest. And this is coming at a really important time. We're going into September, where we're talking debt ceiling, tax reform. Trump is about to start, going around the country to talk about his tax plan. So even the timing of this at this point, and like you said, we're probably going to hear more about this in the coming days. It's notable, and it's something that we might hear from Trump over Twitter about.
So what do you think the biggest story of this administration is going to be looking at it now? This stuff that Priscilla's talking about that may not ever happen?
It's going to
be Russian investigation.
Bob Mueller tells us what he's done.
That's what I think. I think that's the biggest story there is.
Right. Get used to these stories every Friday. These things are going to come out every time. It's like pulling the threads on a sweater that's coming unloose. These things
You know why we go live on this show every night? Because around 6:30 we hear from one of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And it always seems to pop. In the old days, they held it till midnight. Now the stories are put online in the evening right away.
And this is exactly how you build a case as a prosecutor like your Mueller. You go, you find one person, that person, you learn a couple of things, and you go and follow those threads. And you go to the next person, and you subpoena the PR people, and you go and pull someone.
Okay, what's he going to get out of Manafort?
Oh, wow. I mean, who knows what you get out of Manafort? Manafort is the one, I think, at the center of that, who was doing the deals with the Ukrainians, who was involved in all of these kinds of relationships, I think, is at the center of this web. That's why I remember the FBI raided his house.
So let me go back to Bruce. Brian, this thing. What started? Have you figured out the chicken and the egg question? Did the Russians secretly bring Trump in like they do in all the movies and everything? In my experience with them, they know how to bring you in. They find a weakness, they find something you want, and all of a sudden they're running the show. And you thought you were running the show, but it's the Russians always running the show.
It certainly seems that everybody has a connection. When you think, they just brought in this man, Paul Manafort, to run this campaign.
Yeah, why do you pick Manafort to run a campaign? It's the Russians guy.
Carter Page.
Russians guy, Roger Stone. They're all Russian.
Mike Flynn. Every single person seems to have had a connection to Russia. That can't be an accident.
Well, Priscilla, cannot be an accident. Is this serendipity? Trump just happens to keep bumping into Russian-connected people?
I mean, look, I think what we know about the way that the Trump campaign sort of operated during the election was that he surrounded himself around people that ended up having connections to Russia. And, people would come and say, hey, I know a guy, and he can help with X, Y, and Z. And so that's sort of how we start mounting all of this evidence and this information where we're at now.
What I know about the Russians is they have an American. I said this before the show. They always had it could be Dwayne Andrews back in the old days when I was in politics. And that guy's the guy they use. Gorbachev would have Dwayne Andrews, and each one of these guys says they're American. In this case, it's their American is Manafort. Well, their American becomes Michael Flynn.
That's exactly the question to figure out.
Their American is Trump.
Happen to be in the middle of this, or is there that connection, that collusion?
Their American is Trump, the fucker that you people are calling president. Get it through your thick fucking skulls. You've all gone mad.
That set all of these dice falling.
Well, he made $17 million, and that's a lot of money. I know it's a lot of rubles. I mean, he made a lot of money in Moscow. I would say that he's driven by that. Just guessing.
Well, and the other thing is that Manafort, not long ago, we were talking about the meeting with Donald Trump Jr., right? I mean, we were talking about how they had that meeting in 2016. So he definitely keeps...
Why do you think when Trump found out of all these connections with Russia, he didn't just blow the whistle and say, I'm getting new people. I don't want to have all these entanglements with the oligarchs, all these people. I got too much confusion going on in my life. I don't want relations with Russia. Or, I'll put it this way positively, why do you say, well, somebody please find out that stuff that the Russians got on Hillary, give it to me. Right. He wanted to deal with the Russians.
I think he wanted to win. I mean, I think,
and use the Russians.
If dirt on Hillary Clinton was a path forward in winning, I think he was fine with that.
Well, it was so much more precisely coordinated than that. It goes back so much. It goes back decades. Okay? Russian-Trump collusion against whoever's in office. Played sometimes friendly, played sometimes bitterly. But it has always gone on. He has always been their man on the inside here. Just like his daddy and his granddaddy. And that should give you an idea of how long Imperial Russia, representing the horde who drove us out of Europe to begin with, Americans, has been coordinating and plotting our eventual demise.
He dealt with Russians in his past businesses. I don't think it was,
That's exactly right. This universe prism of a guy who's a real estate developer. This guy wants to talk? Let's talk. Why not?
The roundtable sticking with us. Now, next, they're going to tell me three of them are going to tell me something about Katie Beck, who tries.
You people all imagine an enemy doesn't exist, but that enemy was never defeated.
From Corpus Christi, Texas. There you are. Katie, what's the word? It's 4. Is it going to go higher or what? Where are we at here?
Well, it certainly feels like that from where we're inside an SUV right now. There's 4 of us with a ton of gear, and this car is like, it's almost rocking like a boat. Its winds are definitely intensifying as Harvey makes closer to landfall, which we're told is going to be around 1 a.m. Now a Category 4, that means the winds could be between 130 and 160. There's storm surges again between 6 and 12 feet. Folks here are definitely not out on the roads. There are no visible people anywhere. The downtown of Corpus Christi sort of looks like a ghost town. But as you can see outside, the conditions definitely strengthened from the last time we spoke and continue to intensify as the storm makes landfall. The bad news is that even once it does make landfall, there's still a lot more to come. This storm is going to stall and linger and hang over Texas for the next 3 or 4 days. And the rainfall and the significant flooding is really what's going to be the problem after that. Right now, we're seeing massive power outages, thousands without power here, our hotel being one of the places without power. So these folks are going to be in this situation, I think, for some time, especially as the flooding starts to really set in tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Katie Beck, who's down in Corka. We're back with the Hardball Roundtable. Nick, tell me something I don't know.
The debt limit could be a bigger deal than the government shutdown. I wouldn't say that normally, but after the president's tweets blaming Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan for not solving the debt limit already, that's now on my list of
Which
things.
is going to mean us not paying our bills.
The debt limit. That's the big thing. People get confused. They always happen at the same time.
What screws the dollar and everything else?
The debt limit. The debt limit is the one where I called my friends who did this during your bond.
It matters to people at money market and
worse than the financial crisis.
Priscilla.
All right, today the Republican National Committee met in Nashville for their summer gathering, and they voted on a resolution condemning white supremacists. So we had called...
Is that a tough call for them?
Look, we had called 146 state GOP chairs and committee members to ask them, do you agree with Trump's response to Charlottesville? We were met with silence. Only 7 of them were critical of the president's response. Today, they all approved a resolution condemning neo-Nazis, white supremacists, hate groups, etc.
The progressives were smart to stick on that issue and get away from the statutes. The statutes is always going to be a fight over reach and everything else in history. The Nazi one is that winner. Big surprise. Go ahead, you're next.
I attended a town hall in North Carolina. Patrick McHenry, the acting whip, had to tell a constituent that the Trump they see on TV and television is not the Trump he sees behind the scenes. That Trump does have a grasp of policy, does have a grasp of...
but the one you see on television is President of the United States.
He had to convince this constituent that that's not the real Trump.
If you could see her as I do. This is true of so many politicians. So most politicians are pretty good one-on-one, but that's not their job. They got to be out there. It doesn't do any good to say, he's not that bad in person. Great, he's president. Nick Johnson, thank you. Priscilla Alvarez and Brian Murphy. When we return, let me finish tonight with Trump Watch. You won't like it. And you please come back. Trump Watch, Friday, August 25th, 2017. The special counsel probing the Trump-Russian connection is gaining speed. You heard it here tonight. After weeks of prep work and due diligence, the special counsel's operation has reached the point now of compelling evidence under oath before a grand jury. The power of subpoena, in other words, is being weaponized. Mueller's looking into two areas. NBC News is reporting that Mueller has issued grand jury subpoenas in recent days to PR executives who worked for Paul Manafort, who was Trump's presidential campaign chairman. As I said, this is the first news we've gotten, that the special counsel is beginning to compel witness testimony before the grand jury. Mueller's looking at something else. Whether Michael Flynn had a hand in asking the Russians to deliver dirt on Hillary Clinton. Specifically, did he ask or oversee the asking of Russians to provide them with the
Well, it looks like Mr. Paul Manlyfart is definitely in a pickle. And, it's gonna be really, I don't know. There's not really a word for this. Underglorious, not quite satisfying, should be satisfying, but like satisfaction will be denied. Like an incredible amount of satisfaction will be had, but be completely unrecognized when, just like with Hurricane Harvey, I get proven right. Just like with Trump Russia to begin with, first one to call it, I get proven right. Because it is my more advanced understanding and comprehensive knowledge of cause and effect that led me to be able to call these things before the experts did. And it is that same logic that applies. I grew up analyzing Soviet Union tactics, including, in World War II, and understanding how they manipulated the German people through Hitler. I knew we were going to get one because we were being manipulated the same way. And it's a lot more complicated and subtle than you think. And it's not just that. It's more factors than I can bring up at once while trying to focus in a linear stream of thought necessary for communication in the English language. But the other thing I grew up doing was watching the Weather Channel. Oh, I love the Weather Channel. I have owned, or had owned, like when you look up on eBay for an old World Atlas, the really big, nice, binded one, like blue and like the darker blue binding, it says World Atlas on the front. I had one of those from age 4. Okay? Probably before that, but I remember being fascinated from the age of 4 on. Fascinated by it. Continually studious. And I have a slightly irritable bowel when it comes to beef, red sauce, and cabbage. My mom was kind of fucked up. And she liked to cook a lot of beef, red sauce, and cabbage. So I used to stay home from school a lot. Because I'd wake up and I'd have to be shitting instead of be going to school. My mom had to work, so if she couldn't bring me to school, if I couldn't catch the bus, I didn't fucking go to school. Still managed to make straight A's. So I got away with it. And, you know, I had a medical condition. Whatever. But I didn't stay home and watch cartoons. I didn't watch... Well, I watched Sesame Street smoking pot with my friends. But staying home from school by myself, 10 years old, I'd watch either the Learning Channel or the History Channel or the Discovery Channel, or, you know, whatever had a documentary on. And if it was about wars, something I could learn about history and war, that's what I wanted to watch. Or, for hours and hours and hours at a time, I would watch the Weather Channel. Like Jonas Quinn on Stargate SG-1. Yeah. Jonas. Oh, look. Jonas. From another realm, has a lot to teach humanity, could save them, that kind of thing. Knows about a certain destructive power that nobody can control. And he likes to watch the Weather Channel, because it's great. I mean, you get to see what's going on all over. Sit there and... Especially back then. I mean, that was before there was, like, the internet that you know today. I had a computer back then. It wasn't online. I was online from 87 to 89. And then offline until 94. And even then, the 87 to 89 was just my proxy. That wasn't my computer, that was my parents' computer. And you'd go in, and you'd ask for free games. Say, you know where I get free games? That's pretty much all you were doing if you were my age on a BBS back then. And there were maybe 15 kids in the whole world on the fucking internet, on the BBSs back then. Like, nobody was my age. Nobody. They all worked there, you know? Like, everybody on BBSs, they were either somebody who worked in infotech, or they were the wife or husband or something. Which obviously, in my mom's case, she spent a lot of time on. She was probably America's first chat addict. Yeah, she used to spend a lot of time on them BBSs. Anyway. So, there's a website I can't pull up because it won't, for some reason, show you. Okay. But I can get the graphics, pull them off of there. And there's one, that's the continental US version, that's the hemisphere version. They have a bunch of different angles and views of, like, the entire hemispheres and like various parts of it, like the whole half of it, the whole center part of it. And anytime I've ever been able to watch a radar loop like this, how do I explain? It can take me an indefinite amount of time to get bored analyzing one 12-hour loop of a hemisphere. I like to go over it bit by bit. Look at how land and air and sea interact. Look at how the major air masses interact with the minor air masses. And I've always been able to put it together in my head and make better predictions than the weatherman. Not always, actually. In adulthood. By adulthood, I was, I could guess with the best of them. They have their computer models. I am a computer. I am an engineering perception machine. Okay? And I analyze patterns. Patterns of events. Patterns in images. And I spent most of my life hearing about conspiracies. I knew about the Rothschild shit before I had reached double digits in age. Okay? My 10th birthday, I was a fresh cut already. I wound up being a sharp because after getting away from the, people who like to chase me because I was white, I realized that I was being shown a violent minority in the ghetto, and eventually even realized that it was the white people here that had oppressed them. After for over 100 years after enslaving them. And, while Americans did not go and get them slaves themselves, it still happened on our watch. You want to be a man about shit, you want to make excuses for yourself. That's what it all boils down to with a lot of this stuff. With whether you want to call Trump the president. He's not the fucking president. If you want to be man about shit and have honor, have some integrity, be a good person instead of what you think to be an acceptable person. Before it's too late. And what we deem acceptable has become tragedy. And on that bombshell, free Rod's food shirt. It's time to go. Good night, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the hell it is, wherever the hell you are. I hope you have a good one. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm on the wrong side. Peace. Don't forget to click the dingy bell for the notifications that don't even work. Yeah, I'll get that done. But anyway.
I don't understand. I know, oh Lord, I know it's in my